The buzz is back in Charlotte. We discuss the resurgence of the Charlotte Hornets next on Beyond the Locker Room. The Charlotte Hornets have quietly been moving up the standings in the Eastern Conference. They don't get a lot of buzz. Sorry for the bad pun, guys, but they don't get a lot of it. You know, you're not going to hear a lot of talk about them on the national stations and networks all the time, but they have been actually playing some really good ball. You can see remnants or some inklings of it in some of the games with the Raptors last month. I would say, in January, late December, where you could see pieces of it coming together. At that time, LaMelo was kind of coming back from injury. They were trying to fit him in. Miller was out at the time, and they eventually had to fit him in. So they were kind of like sputtering a bit, but you could see glimpses of what Charles Lee was trying to do as the coach of the Charlotte Hornets. And I thought last year he had that team playing very hard. I was very impressed with what I saw from him and his preparedness and his team's fight even last season. So I think if this was something that residue was not left, and you can see it playing out now finally as he has like a full complement. So let's get into some of the reasons why Charlotte is moving up the standings right now. At this moment, they're in the play-in at the moment at 10 and a half game back of Atlanta, and the way they're playing right now, I think they're going to lap Atlanta pretty soon in a week or two. So we'll get into it. So what's made the mid-season turnaround so dramatic in this case? So as I said before, let's set it up. Hornets had a rough start. They were 4-14 at one point, but as the new year and the calendar turned, they have a winning percentage of 600. 21-14, and over a large stretch of the season, one of the best in the Eastern Conference in that span. So they have been playing consistently well for a while. Some big wins, like a huge one that I think woke up a lot of people's eyes, including mine, when they really took care of Oklahoma City in Oklahoma City. Since January 1st, Charlotte has gone 16-9, which ties them for fifth best record in the NBA record during that stretch. So they are starting to gain confidence. They're a young team. That's always makes for a very dangerous combination if you're the opposition. 2, let's look into it. Elite offense during the resurgence. So one of the things that I've always been maybe a little more of a LaMelo, not saying I'm a LaMelo guy, but I'm a little more bullish on LaMelo than a lot of people are. A lot of people look at LaMelo, look at the fancy cars, look at the fancy plays, and just kind of dismiss him. And I've always said, like, when he's healthy, he's a winning player. When he was healthy in his rookie year, as well as I think a bit in the second year, those teams got the play-in. And, they got smoked in the play-in, but they got the play-in, and they were like around 500. And you can see that, okay, if you could just get him a little more discipline, rein him in a little bit, but also get better talent around him, you could have something. He's a guy you could be a key part of building around. And you're now starting to finally see it now with the talent now improving around him. And we'll get to his own specific elements of it right now. But overall, going back to the offense, the Hornets have ramped it up significantly. They're now, ranked first in offensive rating that in the span I mentioned previously, over the first part of 2026, I should say. Third in net rating, sixth in effective field goal percentage, according to NBA.com. Some Reddit tracking, as I heard here in this case, Charlotte's leading the league. Take it for what it's worth. In net rating in January at plus 10.8. Ahead of most playoff contenders. Based on their play, that would not be surprising if that's the case. So the offense has really been kind of coming together, and they have a ton of offensive talent, and we're going to get to some of that in a second. Point 3, the dominant rebounding and hustle play. So they have become a rebounding powerhouse. They have the athletes, they have the physicality, they have the depth to be a very good rebounding team, and they work hard. They go after, as I mentioned in my opener. They lead the NBA in defensive rebounding percentage at 73.7% and total rebound at 55.8% according to tips. So second offensive rebounding percentage and second chance scoring already, turning extra possessions into points, and that's also from tips. So the rebounding, obviously, it's fueled momentum, help control games. It finds a way to kind of like stem the tide, get more offensive rebounding to kind of keep moments alive and keep runs alive. And even keep them in competitive standpoints, when they're struggling with their shots. So Charlotte's been gritty, and I said before, that's the type of stuff I saw last year, and you're starting to see it come to fruition again this year. Now let's get to the fun in this case. Let's get to the people, the players on the court. So Number 4, young core delivering breakout seasons. And this core is something I've been waiting to see for a while. As I mentioned just now a few moments ago, that if LaMelo can get a few guys around him that have the talent to kind of complement his skill set, which is his long range shooting, but also his fantastic visions in passing, and get some finishers that can work with that. Hey, you got something here. And boy, did they pick up a few finishers in the last couple drafts. So Brandon Miller, who's quietly having a nice season, I think because of the injury and the stop and start of the season, people kind of have forgotten about him a little bit. But he's right now leading the team at 20.6 points per game, 20.5 points a game, depending on which stats you see, on ESPN.com, and primary offensive creator. So he's taking some of the load from LaMelo to kind of help him out, which is great, considering that LaMelo has so many injuries. It's probably good to have another guy that could take on that load and that initiation on offense. LaMelo's LaMelo. He's the team's major facilitator, as always. Leads the team in assists at 7.3 assists per game. And what I like with LaMelo is he's very cagey at dictating pace. His biggest thing is shot selection, and I think that's something in this run. Two things in the run I think that's helped with that. And I don't want to steal too much of my own thunder here, but I'll put it this way: I think LaMelo has, restrained the shot selection a little bit, which would kind of shoot you out of games. And he's listened to Charles Lee. They had some moments where he's coming off the bench, a few months ago, so it was looking a little rocky, but he's bought in. And I think also too, he's actually kind of moving the puppies, as the quote my man Raph would say. He's starting to play a little bit more on defense. And I said before, I don't think people understand this. I think the Raptors are the perfect example. You don't necessarily need to be like, the next coming of, Metta World Peace or Michael Cooper on defense, or Scottie Pippen. Like, all you need to do is just make sure you try to keep in front of your man for just a split second, a second or so longer, and the difference that makes for your team defensively is ridiculous. So if you think about it, just think about it compounding, right? So if LaMelo is able to stick in front of his guy an extra second more, and Bridges is able to stick in front of his man just for 1 second more, same with Miller, same with Khan, all of a sudden now it looks like it's a very functional defense. As I said before, using the Raptors example, they don't have a lot of great defenders on the Raptors either, but they're having a very competent season defensively because of the same mindset. Just being able to hold the line, hold the rope, you'll hear coaches say. And Charlotte's kind of bought into what Charlie's been selling, and it's been great to see. I love seeing young teams and young talent kind of start to bloom, man. It's really fun to watch. And I've kind of checked them out a couple times. They're a fun team to watch, and they have a lot of fun players. I mentioned Brandon Miller, I mentioned LaMelo, but we can't have a Charlotte discussion without Khan. So Khan, obviously your number, Khan, 4th pick in the draft. He's been sensational. Actually, and you can't, what can you say? He's averaging 19.2 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, leading the league in 3-pointers made as a rookie, and setting an NBA rookie record for games with 5+ threes. So that's what we're seeing from Khan. What he gives them too is, and this is why I say sometimes when you have a point guard as your franchise guy, a lot of times in my mind, I don't think you want the point guard to be your number 1 offensive option if he's your franchise guy. Sometimes he's better to be the 2nd or the 3rd option, because then you play into his ultimate strength, which is facilitation. So now you have him with 2 guys on the wing with Miller and Knipple that can just drain shots from everywhere through legitimately 3-level scorers. And now you throw him at, of course I mentioned Bridges, he's gonna give me 18 a game. So he's got guys all around it. He can now set all over the place with his vision. I'm talking about Ball, of course. That it plays, it fits in really perfectly. You can see it happening from a mile away. That this is what you wanted, and you just had to get guys on the court together. And I think the early part of the year when Khan was playing and Miller wasn't around and Melo, those reps were great. You got to kind of just go and just let loose. Gain the confidence that you needed. And now you have yourself where you have a 1-2 threat with him and Miller on the wings, and LaMelo being like the maestro. And then any night that one of them are off, Bridges could give you 25, 25 or 30. So they have a lot of offensive potency. Never mind what's coming off the bench, but hey man, this team is something to watch when you get the postseason time. Watch out for them. Number 5, effective lineup in chemistry. We mentioned it before. And that's essentially what I was just mentioning just now. Ball, Miller, Bridges, Diabate. Hope I pronounced the family's name right, fellas. My apologies if I did not. I always struggle with his name. Knipple have played together. When they play together, Charlotte's offensive rating is off the charts. Is 136.4 with net rating of plus 26 according to Tips. Now, that's interesting to say because this is going back to the point about the injuries, right? If you could get them all together and play a certain amount of minutes together, now you're seeing it kind of stitch together. You can now see also the reason why they wanted to move off the center last year in this case, Mark Williams, because Diabate in this case is not only does he hustle, he's a pretty good shot blocker, he grinds. He's also a pretty healthy dude, knock on wood, but he shows up with the lunch pail and the hard hat, and he's there all the time. You don't have to worry about that. He seems like he puts in the work behind the scenes to keep himself, ready to go and healthy. So now you're having sustainable success with these five being able to play with each other for a long time, and that makes for exciting times if you're from Buzz City. Number 6, strong road under pressure play. So, this case, in the recent analysis for Charlotte, offensive rebounding and points per possession on putbacks have been excellent. But, providing scoring bursts and also that flips the momentum in the second halves. Now, I would say I mentioned this earlier about big win at Oklahoma City. They have been actually very potent on the road. I saw them whoop Chicago the other day. I know Chicago was having a hard time, 10, 11 straight losses. I lost track of how many losses they have, but my goodness, they took it to the woodshed. The quote JR, if you're a wrestling fan, if you know, you know. They took it to the woodshed, man. And, by about 30 points, it was a beatdown of epic proportions. They are nothing to play with. They're not folding close games on the road. They're keeping their head in the game and being able to pull out some wins. And then if they get a chance to put you out of your misery, they're going to do so. And now with Kobe White added to this team, that was his first game, I believe, that night against Chicago, they have more potency coming off the bench. So, yeah, they are coming together very nicely. Number 7, year-over-year improvement. I mentioned this has been trickling this throughout the whole pod. Just showing what last year in 1963. The Hornets are currently almost 500. I think they're 28-31 right now. I mentioned they're 10th right now. And I suspect they're going to pass Atlanta before the season's done. And I said before, you got to give it props to Charles Lee and that coaching staff. You can see the vision he had last year. He just couldn't get the horses to be healthy. And now, even earlier this year, he couldn't get them healthy. But he kept the team. Key part is with a good coach. If you keep the players engaged, just to hang on long enough that the troops, that the cavalry comes. And the cavalry started coming back with Ball coming back, with Miller coming back, and now with the trades, for like Kobe White as a key piece of that. They're going to be a very fun team to watch come May. And statistical indicators of growth is the last point here. So Charlotte shows an average of 115.4 points per game, 46 rebounds and 26 assists, which is up markedly from recent seasons. That's according to ESPN. So you can see in this case here the improvement from all elements of it. And the counting stats match a team playing with more tempo, more efficiency, and cohesion, which is what all this is about as far as having more opportunity with this starting lineup in this unit, having your key guys being able to play, and how well they mesh together, which is what I've been saying, throughout this pod. So Charlotte is a fun team to watch, folks. Keep an eye on them. Don't sleep on them. They're going to be a real tough out, in this case, in the East. I'll leave it there. You know where to find me weekly at Basketball Rewind. Draft Talk is on Basketball Rewind. Also, you know where to find me as well, too, on X, Facebook, Instagram, as well as Blue Sky. And you can find me right here on YouTube. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hey, subscribe is for free, guys. No taxes, nothing on it, man. It's good stuff, man. But I appreciate the support nonetheless, guys. Anyways, take care, guys. We'll talk next time. Keep it locked. Peace.